Hey guys, it's Crossroads here. Today, I wanted to talk to you about SoFi. No, not about the phenomenal earnings that they just posted, but instead why the stock is giving up all its gains after hours. And there is a reason for it, but let's look at what that is. So, first, let's take a look here. We see the actual ticker went up 6.5% in today, which I mean, amazing earnings. Honestly, it should have been up more, and it's down by about the same after hours. So why is this specifically? Well, we see this piece here from Business Wire, and they said SoFi Technologies announces a public offering of common stock. Business Wire is, by the way, a really good place to go if you're like wondering about breaking news on a company. They usually have these press releases in advance, and sure enough, they do right here. They announced this after hours. $1.5 billion of shares are being underwritten. So basically, this is dilution of $1.5 billion of shares, which it's a lot of shares worth. So in connection with the offering, they grant the underwriter a 30-day option to purchase up to an additional 15%, which usually these are, and they end up being overfilled. And so don't be surprised if we see 15% on top of that as well. And in essence, it's used for, it says, general purpose, corporate purposes, working capital, other business opportunities. Goldman Sachs is the one that's running this through. Not a big surprise. Anthony Noto has connections there. So what exactly is this? Well, let's take a little bit further look. You can look this up yourself. Go to sec.gov, search for SoFi, and make sure you're on SoFi Technologies, and you'll see this. So there's two different forms here. This one is very blank. And then this one is actually has to do with the actual shelf. So the prospectus itself here, usually, and this will have some updated details, but you can see right here, it's just blank. But it is talking about the offering that's very specific. And once the offering comes to a close, you'll actually see that be filled out. But it's a prospectus there for those that are looking to purchase the debt of SoFi, which is redeemable for shares. That they can end up looking at that prospectus. It's basically a reminder of what the company is. So the automatic shelf offering is what we'll look at here today too. And so if you look at this, there's a lot of fluff and stuff that's in all of these others. Does note that the share price closed at 21.02, or it was at least at the time when they submitted this. And if you look at the actual, so it talks about the prospectus as well. But if you look at the actual company and what they say, it's a prospectus. It's just saying, hey, this is what this is. Proceeds. This is what we need to look at. It says, unless otherwise indicated in the prospectus supplement, which we just looked, it doesn't indicate otherwise. It says, we intend to use the net proceeds from our sale of securities for general corporate purposes. Now, that can be a lot of things. So we'll take these one at a time, including working capital. Working capital is for SoFi, in essence, this is money that they can loan out against. So the way that banks work is they can loan out at a much higher rate versus the money that they actually have, even against money that they've gone into debt for. And so you can think of it, it's not exactly the same thing, but you can kind of think of it as a form of margin that SoFi is taking on, potentially to loan out against if they see an opportunity with lending in the short term. Now, I don't think that that's actually it here, simply because SoFi didn't indicate that in the earnings call at all. They didn't. They talked about lending, but they seemed to actually pound their chest on the fact that they had more than half of their revenue coming from non-lending sources, and they seemed like that they wanted to continue that trend as well. They don't need this money to fuel the loan platform business either, so that's not what this is for. Now, acquisitions. Could this be an acquisition? Well, I think that this is probably what's happening here. If we look at quarter one, this is a previous earnings call 3 months ago, they actually specifically called it out. So let's go back here and we see that they're talking about crypto, and they're talking about level 1 options, blockchain and blockchain offerings, and what they're doing with the crypto business. And they outlaid that at certain fireside chats, but they said, in addition to enabling members to invest in crypto coins, we will enter other areas over the next 6 to 24 months, but potentially much sooner, which again, this is 3 months ago, via acquisition, or if the changing regulatory landscape allows. That is almost certainly what this is. Regulation has opened up even more. And I think that SoFi sees an opportunity here via acquisition much sooner than 6 months. And so that's likely what's going to happen. Now, we should know that relatively soon. I would expect within days, maybe even weeks of that acquisition. There's probably some final details that they need to, and this is really showing intent and also that they have the actual cash commitment to do. Now, this isn't the only way that they could actually go about an acquisition, and it is not always done that you dilute on the front end. Instead, sometimes you use some of that equity just directly to make that purchase. Now, what else could this be? We see retirement of debt. They did that before with the senior convertible notes, and it made sense at the time. Although I'm never the biggest fan of that sort of thing, but it did make sense. I don't think this is the case either. If you look at their debt and their debt structure, they do have that, but a lot of those near-term notes that are expiring have they're actually further out. So this isn't probably what that's at, especially as interest rates are going to lower. And so it makes sense to refinance at a little later time and other business opportunities. So it could be anything. I think that right now the market is reacting to the uncertainty of this. And also SoFi keeps doing this dilution, which is honestly, it's pretty annoying as an investor, but I think the uncertainty is the biggest piece. So if this is for an incredible acquisition that we get excited about, that's amazing. It's a great opportunity. If it's to accelerate lending, it's a little bit odd, but probably good for SoFi. But really the question is whether you trust management here or not. I do. I think they've earned the trust. I think that we see that from the quarter. But I will say it's still annoying. I don't like dilution. I don't like dilution, especially of $1.5 billion worth of stock, actually probably 15% higher, and not knowing the reason as well. There's other ways to do this. I'm not a huge fan. Now, I may become a fan depending on what they announce as far as the acquisition. But if it's for something else to help the tech platform, for instance, reaccelerate, I'm going to be really unhappy about that. But we'll have to see. Time will tell. It's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, for right now, we are giving up our gains. And I wouldn't be shocked, especially because we see each and every time SoFi does this, it tends to tank the momentum. It tanks the stock. And my prediction of SoFi going to $28, well, the macro isn't cooperating, but SoFi themselves are not cooperating either. So 28, it may not happen even this year. We'll have to see what happens, but it's certainly not happening this week. So anyway, that's where it's at. That's what I'm looking at. That's why the stock is tanking afterwards. Amazing earnings call and news that just kills the momentum afterwards. Don't be surprised to see more pain as SoFi shareholders. Hey, we're used to it. I'm especially used to it today because of the PayPal earnings. So let me know what you think in the comments. Is there something that I'm missing and overlooking with this? Is there an acquisition or a specific company that you think they might be acquiring? Are you saying, you know what? It's time to take some profits. There's nothing wrong with that. Or are you saying, hey, this is a dip that I wanted. I'm going to add more. I'd love to hear it in the comments. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, commenting, and subscribing. And until next time, happy investing.